Welcome to Advent, everyone. This is the first Sunday of Advent, as you know, and what you may not know is that this is one of my favorite days of the church calendar for several reasons. 3 reasons, namely. First, and the most petty, is I get a little tired of ordinary time. It's fun at first, maybe you're kind of entering into summer, and it's different, but it stops being different after a while. In fact, liturgical planners have to find ways to make it, and I'm looking at Rachel here, have to find ways to make it different. Well, let's break up the first half of ordinary time from the second half, because otherwise it's boring. And we get tired of saying, well, it's the 12th Sunday after Pentecost, and now it's the 29th Sunday after Pentecost, and the 327th Sunday after Pentecost, and it gets old. So now it's Advent. So that's always fun. The second reason this is one of my favorite Sundays of the church year is because it was in 2013, on the first Sunday of Advent, that our best friends Lisa and Mircea invited us to the baptism of their firstborn at Trinity Episcopal Church in Lawrence, just down the road here. And that was the beginning of our Episcopal journey. That was the first time that we really attended an Episcopal church in earnest. We were sort of floating around, not sure what our next thing was going to be for us when it came to religion and Christianity and church. And so they invited us, and we thought, maybe there's something to this Episcopal thing. And there was. So the very next Sunday, we were back in our hometown of Springfield, and we went to Christ Episcopal Church on a morning that looked an awful lot like this, actually. It was, although the attendance is much better here than it was on that day, it was a skeleton crew. And so when this fresh-faced young couple steps in, of course, everybody kind of wraps us up, and they're like, oh my gosh, first-time visitors with snow outside and ice and everything? So we kind of got the royal treatment and the tour and everything. But it was the first Sunday of Advent, and I didn't even realize it at the time, that we had showed up on the first day of the church calendar. We got to begin at the beginning with our own Episcopal journey. So then the third reason is that it gives me an opportunity to whine a little bit, to gripe about how our culture always screws up December. And how it becomes all about this big commercial bonanza Christmas. And we had Black Friday the other day, which is called that because that's the day that the retailers go into the black, apparently, right? That's the day that they're relying on to make a profit for the year. And it's so important, this Christmas shopping season, it actually had the power to change the calendar itself. As you may not be aware, I want to say 1939, that President Roosevelt was petitioned by the National Dry Goods Association to move the day of Thanksgiving back, make it earlier, to stretch out the Christmas shopping season. And he did, and it passed, and to this day, Thanksgiving is where it is because of commercialism. And and I'm going to launch into something in peanuts. Just go watch Charlie Brown's Christmas special, and I don't have to say any of this. The spirit of Christmas, right? It's lost in all of that. And there's maybe no better example of that commercialism kind of infecting the religious aspect of this holiday than the Advent calendar. Anybody played around with you won't be in trouble if you raise your hand. Advent calendars in your home? Maybe, maybe not. But we have a few. Nice. It's fun, right? It is fun to open a little door every day in December leading up to Christmas, especially with kids or with the young at heart, right? You have something fun and little chocolate or whatever in there. I am not anti-fun. If it's fun, do it, right? I think it's cool. However, I'm not sure why they felt the need to call it an Advent calendar. Right? It doesn't have anything to do with Advent at all. It's December 1st through December. That's not how Advent works. It's the 4 Sundays leading up December. Okay, so it works this year. But only this year. December 1st. All right, use your Advent calendars both for fun and because you have my permission. You don't need it, but fun is fun, right? Most years, they're calling it Advent, even though it doesn't align at all with what Advent is here to do and what it's here to be. And I think it gets translated sort of as we need another word for it. We need a more spiritual word for the Christmas season, or for the days leading up to Christmas. And they just went and grabbed that Advent word. That sounds spiritual, right? That sounds kind of deep and weighty. So let's use Advent for that. But that's not what it's for. And I think that's where even those of us in the church doing our color changes and our liturgical changes and our confession up at the front like we did this morning, even we can get lost in that sometimes. And we think of Advent as pre-Christmas, as this is a time to prepare ourselves for the Nativity. And that's not wrong, but I think it sucks some of the meaning and some of the significance out of what Advent is here to be. Advent is its own thing. It's not contingent on Christmas. And that's where our Advent calendar sometimes throw us off. An Advent calendar is contingent on Christmas because that's exactly what it's designed to do. It's a countdown or a count up, if you will, to the Feast of the Nativity. But Advent, as a liturgical season, is not contingent upon Christmas. And in fact, the lectionary bears that out. When we read these readings, I mean, if you go to another church that does it differently from us, which is all great, and they're doing readings throughout December, they're probably telling the nativity story in pieces, right? And starting with the announcement to Mary, Angel Gabriel coming to Mary, and then to Joseph, or maybe they're just starting at the beginning of Luke with Elizabeth and Zechariah and the birth of John the Baptist. And what they're doing is they're telling the nativity story in pieces. But that's not what our lectionary is giving us. In fact, it seems to be pointing past the nativity. It's kind of ignoring the birth and the baby of the baby Jesus in the manger and all of that, and pointing to Jesus' ultimate coming, to his ultimate purpose. And some of it's a little dark, right? A little scary. How can you avoid this great darkness that's coming? Yeah, it's in some ways it's a penitential season, or a mini penitential season, and one that we do need to embrace the shadow and look honestly at the darkness that's around us. Advent is a time of preparation, but it's a time to prepare ourselves. Not just to tell the first parts of a larger story, but to prepare ourselves for the promise of a Messiah. It is a time for hope, and not a hope that's based on some kind of evidence. Well, A plus B equals C. Or not hope that's based on some kind of feel-good naivete. Not lip service hope, but hope that's rooted in a promise. That's Advent hope is its own thing, not contingent upon Christmas, but hope with power. And hope can look foolish sometimes. And if you read my newsletter, you might have picked up on that a little bit, going around the Thanksgiving table, saying what we're thankful for. It's like, are we still 7 years old? Do we have to do this? My dad made us do it at Thanksgiving the other day. It was nice. It's nice. But it can feel childish. It can feel a little bit foolish because we are expressing this Advent hope based not on what just happened in some election, maybe especially not that, I don't know. Depends on your perspective. Not based on what the Dow Jones looks like, not based on the unemployment numbers or who won the game the other day or any of that, those external realities. But we have this hope based on a promise, and it can look foolish to others, just like if you were in the park listening to music in your earphones and it's just your jam comes on, so you have to start dancing, and everybody's like, who is that ridiculous person just dancing around in the park? They're not hearing what you're hearing. And our hope can look foolish to people who aren't hearing the promises that our hope is based on. I mean, they are not hearing what we heard this very morning. And I want to get this right. They're not hearing the promise that in those days and at that time God will cause a righteous branch to spring up for David, and he shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. They don't hear that, but we do. And they may not hear the promise that God will make you increase and abound in love for one another and for all, and strengthen your heart in holiness, that you may be blameless before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus with all his saints, the advent of Jesus. They may not hear that promise, but we hear it. They may not hear that the Son of Man is coming in a cloud with power and great glory, and your redemption is drawing near. But you hear it. You heard it today. And this is what our hope is based on. If we try to explain it in sensible terms and say, I have hope because of X and Y and Z, and all that seems to add up to something hopeful, that's not hope. That's optimism. And optimism is great too. It's fine. But it's not hope. It's not Advent hope. Our hope is rooted in our faith and trust in a God that keeps God's promises. And when we exercise that hope and when we embrace it, we're not waiting for something else to happen. The hope itself is power. Hope itself brings healing. Hope itself brings transformation. Hope generates miracles. It's not an empty space waiting for something to come and fill it. It is an engine all its own. And that's why Advent is not pre-Christmas. It's not a time waiting for another time. Hope is not contingent upon circumstance. Hope is a gift from God. And if our hope is rooted in the promise of God for the healing of the world, then it actually has the power to bring that healing to pass. It is a reality. Hope is a reality, and it's a reality that we've read today that brings justice, that brings righteousness, everything that Jesus is here to do. And we will have that opportunity to gaze on the infant in the manger, the miraculous birth, and the star in the heavens, and everyone that came streaming in to witness this new thing coming into the world. That is coming. And we'll have 12 whole days for that. But you'll often hear me say, whether we're talking about Lent or Advent or any of these seasons, or whether we're talking about just a journey of the soul and of the emotions of the heart, you'll hear me say these words: don't skip this. Everything and everyone around us, even with me, I'm probably going to put up some Christmas lights on our house today. And that's good. That's fine. But don't let everything that we witness all around us cause us to miss the reality of hope that is imbued, that's embedded in this Advent season right now. Because this beginning of our church year doesn't come in the way that the calendar year starts. When it's New Year's Day, there's fireworks, there's a big stainless steel ball falling for some reason I never figured out. All of the hoopla that comes with the beginning of a new calendar year, but a beginning of our church year and our annual journey is different from that. It begins not with fireworks, but with a single candle lit in the darkness. Like everything that our tradition is rooted in, we begin in darkness. We begin in quietness and silence. And we allow that hope to gather strength in us as we gather together to prepare our own hearts for the love, the joy, and the peace that our Messiah brings. Amen.